Hey everyone, glad you can be here today. I'm so excited for today's topic, and you're probably watching this video because you're most likely an OFW, a business owner, and you're asking yourself one question: how do I prepare for retirement? And this is a video that I'm recording due to a quote unquote popular demand. By popular, I mean like five people told me to record it, but no, this is something that I'm really passionate about, something I want to speak on, because it's something that we've tried our very best to practice in our own lives, because we really believe that it's going to change our lives, and it actually already has in many ways, and I'm sure that it can change a lot of people's lives as well. So quick introduction for those of you who are landing on this video for the first time and you don't know who I am. I am the co-founder of Block10 Strategy. I'm also the founder of a coaching business called The Freedom Formula, and I'm also a podcaster for Workaholic with Kiko Mabilog and The First Step. So my name is Patrick. Some of my friends call me Kiko. Let's dive right in. So, first off, just a quick disclaimer: I am not a financial advisor. I do not sell insurance. I do not offer investments. I'm just really passionate about finance. And I truly believe that anyone and everyone with the right tools, the right mindset, and the right knowledge can really get ahead financially so that they can have both financial and time freedom. I'm also not yet retired uh, in a strict sense. So this is something that I'm also currently still ongoing as a process, and I'm still in the middle of it. So I'm not coming into this as an expert saying this is what you should do. I'm just basically going to share what we've been doing to help us reach our retirement goals. And lastly, all computations and numbers presented in this video are just projections, and they're not indicators of any performance or guarantees that that's how the market will perform as well. So the starting point really is the topic of retirement, right? In our old age, I guess the question that we're all probably going to be asking ourselves is, are we going to be ready financially? Because the truth of the matter is that our income over time, our earning capacity will slow down and even come to a point where we're probably going to be unable to earn the same income that we're earning today, or probably even stop earning altogether. And there's this reality that we all face, especially for Filipinos, since I'm a Filipino and I'm recording this mainly for a Filipino audience, but really can be applied to any nationality as well. But like one thing that a lot of us are taught is that your income is going to be tied to your labor. And so we always fall for this notion that if I don't work, then I don't get paid. However, that might be true, but it's also this realization that I've had for quite some time now, that it's not necessarily the only way that you can earn income. And one of the ways that you can earn income is through passive income, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But the reason why I'm making this video is really because there's little to no education on retirement planning, especially for Filipinos. And because of that, there was this study by Insular Life that shows that Filipinos actually score very low, around 47 out of 100 in terms of like retirement index across the globe, where I think lowest three probably, or if not probably like the second lowest. And that indicates that we're quite poor when it comes to national retirement readiness. And we definitely need other means for us to retire aside from SSS pension, because it's definitely not enough to cover a lot of the expenses that we have. And so, because of that, what normally happens in our old age? When we're not ready for retirement, it can cause financial stress, obviously, because if you don't have enough money, then you're not going to be able to cover all of your bills. But the other two things that we don't realize is it also creates relational stress and emotional stress. Relational stress mainly because in the Philippines specifically, the general direction for retirees is to depend on family members, most especially their children in their old age. And so that can cause a lot of relational dysfunction within families, because, at the end of the day, money is a very sensitive topic. And instead of, trying to work through you know, the, the details, the dirty, not the messy details of money and relationships, sometimes we just try to sweep it under the rug. So it can cause a lot of relational stress amongst children and their parents. It can also cause emotional stress, not just for your children, but even for yourself, because it creates this. Sometimes we don't admit it, but it can create this sense of guilt and shame because we're being a burden to other people. And if that's not the kind of person you are, then I think it should cause guilt and shame, which is, a story for a different day. But that's the reason why, essentially, I'm really passionate about this topic because of these, two very young ladies right here. I realized early on that I'd never want to be a burden to my two daughters. These are my two daughters, Sam and Alexa. And so because of that, we've kind of like been very active in terms of preparing for retirement, trying to make sure that we earn enough income, we get into the right financial strategies, we learn from the right people. And thankfully, over the years, we've met a lot of really good mentors, a lot of really good resource people that have helped kind of like guide us towards the right direction. These are things that we figured out simply because people held us by the hand, and we ran into videos like this, which is why I'm making a video like this, basically, just so that you have the same access as well to this information, especially if you're a family or a friend, you're someone close to me and to us. And we definitely want to give you this opportunity as well to be equipped and be ready for the day of retirement so that you wouldn't have to be a burden to your children or your family as well. And so, because of that, we've achieved a couple of things. We've semi-retired at 35 years old. We've kind of taken a step back from our day jobs, running our day-to-day expenses mostly on our business. We've kept our expenses very low, invested a lot. We have some passive income sources, and they're starting to cover a very big chunk of our expenses, which I'll get to in a little bit. We're aiming to get into post retirement by 40 years old, meaning that we can kind of like stop investing and stop hustling and kind of just like coast that until we can finally hit a six-digit passive income by the age of 50. So the question now is not sana, the statement here is not sana all, right? But it's how do you do that? There's a very big difference between saying, oh, that's great, good for you, or also going and saying, that's awesome, how can I experience the same thing as well? And I want to make this very clear. Me and Ces were not experts. We have made a lot of financial mistakes. We have lost a lot of money, but somehow, by some move of grace, we've gotten where we are. And we could have cut out a lot of headaches, a lot of heartbreaks, had someone made a video like this for us and walked us through the process. Hence, this video. So, how do you do it then? The starting point really is to switch from active to passive income. So there's a lot of talk of passive income, and we think of passive income as running a business or creating a side hustle that will generate revenue for you. That can be true in many times, but most times, however, you're actually creating active income. What's the difference? Active income means that you have to work for the income that you have. And passive income means that income keeps coming even if you don't continue working. And it's that simple. But so many times we're always thinking about active income. Why? Because truth of the matter is, all of us, we will start with active income unless you're a trust fund baby or a Nepo baby, right? But most of us, we're going to have to start with active income. I wasn't born rich. I wasn't born into a family with an inheritance. So I really had to find active income. And so the same thing with Cess as well. She came from a middle class family. I came from a middle class family. We had to figure out how to, raise a family and provide for our own personal needs on our own. And then we built passive, active income rather, and we use that active income to create investment, tools, or to build investment portfolios and tools in our lives so that we can now start slowly relying on passive income so that we have the time, we have the freedom to pursue projects that we want. And even when it comes to a point where we can no longer earn active income, we don't have to rely on our children. And so, how do you do that? So, I want to share a very simple form, like step framework, essentially. Of course, this is just a starting point, but hopefully, this can get you started at the right foot. So, the first thing that you need to do is need to know your FI number. what the hell is an FI number. So financial independence number, or FI number, is the number where your passive income is the passive income that you need to earn to cover all of your expenses. And so financial independence, we talk about financial freedom in the Philippines all the time. And it's kind of vague, and it's actually quite misleading because you don't really know what financial freedom is. But financial independence, I like financial independence because it's more concrete and it's easier for you to measure. Essentially, if your passive income can now cover your burn or your expenses monthly, then you now have financial independence. And so knowing that number is important. You cannot set a goal, and you definitely cannot hit a goal if you don't know what that goal is. And so it starts with knowing what your financial independence number is. So how do you compute your financial independence number? So let's say, for example, today, 2025, as I'm recording this video, you're spending about 60,000 pesos a month, which is what uh, our family kind of spends on needs, right? So family of four will probably spend a little bit more than that on occasion for vacations, but all of that. But needs wise, 60,000 a month kind of covers all of your, like, all of our expenses. And so if this is close to your number as well, we need to realize that this will not be your financial independence number by the time that you retire. Why? Because there's something called inflation. And with inflation, anywhere between 2 to 4% every single year, what that means is 30 years from now, if you're spending 60,000 a month, you're probably going to be spending about double that, or 120,000 a month in 2055. And so when you're setting your financial independence number, your FI number, you have to consider inflation. And so that might sound like a big burden because, oh wow, I'm already spending so much. How am I even gonna build uh an investment portfolio that can give me more than that, double that? We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay. But that's the first thing. You need to know what your FI number is. So clarity. So write down your expenses, put together all of the needs, the non-negotiables that you're spending on, minus rent, hopefully, if you're hoping to one day actually own property so that you can remove rental expense. That's probably a topic for another video. But you want to be able to understand how much you're spending on food, utilities, a little bit of eating out, luxuries here and there, probably some local travel here, but like that, for this number specifically, we'll get into that a little bit. But like, let's just focus on like the basic needs, right? Healthcare, and medications, which will go up as you get older, fitness, and so on and so forth. Utilities, I think I said utilities, and yeah, you get the point. But like, write down every expense and figure out what your FI number will be. Factor in inflation and ask yourself the question: by the time I retire at the age of 60 or 65, how much will I need? So that's the starting point. So once you have your target expenses when you retire, that's not yet your FI number. So your FI number now is the amount that you will need to make this kind of income to cover for this expense. So how do you do that? So let's say, for instance, no, for the sake of simplicity, to kind of like bring the number down a bit lower because I hate math. Let's say, for example, that your financial independence spending will be around 30,000 pesos a month extra. This is on top of your SSS pension. So let's say you earn another 30,000 from SSS and then 30,000 from your investments, then you make 60,000 by the time that you retire every single month. So multiply that by the number of months in a year, so 12 months, and then after is what you have to do is you have to divide that by 4%. So why 4%? So 4%, this is based on the 4% rule, which kind of indicates that if you withdraw 4% from your investment fund, that you will not run out of money. So say, for instance, if you have 10 million worth of investments, then or let's break it down a bit lower. So like, if you have 1 million pesos in investments and then you get 4% of that, so which is 40,000, you won't run out. That's because normally conservative investment will make around 6 to 7% annually. So you're only taking a portion of that to kind of like uh, take into consideration, market downturns and times where inflation might be higher and so on and so forth. So essentially, you're going to withdraw 4% of your investment fund. So if you have 30,000 per month times 12 months, so that's around 360,000 pesos per year, and you divide that by 4%, so 0.04, you end up with 9 million pesos. Now you might see that and go, wow, that's a big amount of money, which it is. And it might sound intimidating at first, but hear me out, because there's a very important point to be made here. When I started preparing for retirement, when I saw numbers like this, I was like, where am I going to get that kind of money? And mind you, that this was a time when we were barely making a lot of money. And so if I told myself that if even if I made 1 million pesos a year and put all of that into investments, or even let's say half of that in investments, it would take 18 years for me to make 9 million pesos. And considering if I make 1 million pesos a year, but that's where the power of something called compound interest comes in. Compound interest plus your best friend, time. If you have time to invest and then you rely on compounding interest, there's actually something magical that happens. Let me kind of like illustrate that. So I took out this calculator online, which is unfortunately in dollars because a lot of these calculators, they don't have pesos as an option, which is why we need to talk about this more, retirement, because it's really built for the first world in mind. But let's say, for example, just imagine that the dollar signs are pesos, and you start off with an investment of 30,000 pesos, and you have around 30 years to invest. So let's say you start at the age of 30, and then you keep on investing until the age of 60. Or if you can do it earlier, and if you're listening to this and you're below 30, then you can even finish investing even earlier. But let's say, for example, for illustration purposes, you start at 30, you end at 60, and you have a return rate conservatively of 6% every year, which could be, it's very doable with high yield interest banks, digital banks, MP2 bonds, UITF. You could even get higher than that if you invest in more aggressive markets. But I'll leave that for another time. But if you do that and you additionally, top up around 10%, 10,000 pesos rather of investment every single month. Let's say, for instance, that you worked hard and you were able to build your income up to 100,000 pesos a month joint as a married couple, or even you as an individual, and you save 10% of that. You cut your expenses, you put aside money for your future, and then you're able to put in 10,000 pesos a month in investment. If you do that for 30 years, starting with a 30,000 peso investment, then you will have a balance of 9.9 million pesos by the time you're 60 years old. That's the power of time. Again, 30 years of doing this for a very long time, small increments all across that period, and then compounding interest, because again, as you're investing, that investment is growing with time. So if you invest 10,000 pesos, it makes 6%. Then 10,000, 6% of that will be 600 pesos. So it's now 10,600 pesos, and then it becomes higher than that because now you're making interest of the principal plus the interest that you earn. So in essence, to kind of like help you to understand how powerful this is, take a look at this, right? The total contributions that you made was 3.6 million pesos based on that calculator. You only put in 3.6 million pesos, but it became 9 million pesos. That's the power of compounding interest and time. And when you do that, essentially, what you have is you have an investment plan, which is the second step, right? The plan. I'm not talking about insurance, by the way. I'm not talking about investment schemes or investment programs. I'm not a financial advisor, which I said earlier. I'm not a wealth manager. We have financial advisors and wealth managers that help us to figure this out. So if you need a financial advisor or wealth manager, we're more than happy to make referrals. But this is essentially what they taught us. And so just crunching the numbers, essentially, you start to see that the way for you to reach your FI number, your financial independence number, is really to rely on compounding interest and time. So once again, let me show you this calculation. 30,000 pesos per month times 12 months, you need 9 million pesos. If you invest 10,000 pesos and do that for 30 years, starting with 30, and again, starting with 30, but if you could start with 100, if you could start with 200, with 500, then this could go up a lot higher, or you could probably finish investing a lot faster. But that's what you essentially, you need a plan to invest at a regular rate for a long period of time. This is not an overnight thing. We've been doing this for 10 years now. We started investing when we were 25 years old. Cess and I got married 22 years old. Mind you, during that time, we weren't making a lot of money. Because sometimes you might think and hear this, oh, that's perfect for you because you might be making hundreds of thousands of pesos a month. We are, but that's not the point aside. Essentially, sorry, that sounded very uh tekalon. Pero but kidding aside, no, I mean that the when we started this, we weren't making a lot of money. We were making 50, 60,000 probably per month. But we started with very little. We started with 500, built it up to 1,000, then 2,000 and 5,000 until such time that we were investing somewhere between 80 to 100,000 pesos a month when our income grew, which might be another video altogether. How can you increase your income so you can increase your investments? But here's the thing we need to realize. We think that for you to create an investment plan, you need to be rich first. But it's actually the other way around. If you want to be rich, you need to create an investment plan. We got it the other way around, friends. And so if you want to build a strong retirement, you need to have a plan in place. The last thing, essentially, when after you have your investment plan, is you need to choose your investment vehicles. Your investment vehicles. What are these? These are the instruments and the assets that you invest in that will allow you to earn that passive income. So at this point, you might be asking, okay, so what are the best investment vehicles? I don't want to make any recommendations because, once again, I'm not qualified to do that. I cannot make recommendations also because it will vary from person to person. So it really depends on you and your goals and who you are. So it's very personalized. But the three key like characteristics or like factors that you want to look at first before you choose an investment vehicle, you need to understand yourself first. Number one is you need to understand what your time horizon is. How long do you have? Are you 40 years old and you want to retire at 65 so you only have 25 years? Are you 20 years old and you're going to retire at 60 or 55? So that changes your time horizon. So the first thing you need to understand is your time horizon. Second is your risk appetite. How much sleep can you get at night knowing that your money is in a fluctuating market? That's what risk appetite essentially is. And our risk appetites can vary from person to person. Cess has a higher risk appetite than I do. And so I invest very differently than she does. But and so essentially we've put that together. Actually in the past couple of years it's actually changed. It's me now who has a bit of a higher risk appetite. So now I have my own personal bets as well in cryptocurrency and AI stocks. But you have to understand what your risk appetite is. Are you a conservative investor? Are you moderate? Or are you high risk? And then last is the expertise, which is this is where I kind of shoot myself in the foot because I'm not an expert at investing or trading. And so I barely trade or invest. I tried in the past and I lost money. So I'm really bad. I don't have a lot of expertise. And so what that means is I need to invest money into funds or assets that can be very beginner friendly. And thankfully, there are a lot of assets that are beginner friendly. A good example would be an index fund, where instead of investing in individual stocks, you're investing in a multiple stock. So you're kind of like leveraging the power of multiple stocks. So one might go up, one might go down. You'll still be going up at a lower rate than than having an individual stock. So you need to understand those three like factors essentially and profile yourself properly. How much time horizon do I have? How much risk appetite do I have? How much expertise do I have? And if we're completely honest with ourselves, 90 to 95% of us don't really have a lot of expertise, which is fine because there are assets, investments that are uh, not very technical, and you just need to understand how they work and trust that an index fund or a manager can take care of that for you. When you are choosing your investment vehicle, you want to make sure that you diversify a little bit. As the old saying goes, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And so I want to kind of like show you where we have invested so you can kind of like picture out what diversified portfolio might look like. So over the years, we've acquired three properties, two houses and one condominium unit, one bedroom condo unit. In the short term, it's one house and one condo unit being rented out. But in the future, when we retire, what's going to happen is Cess and I are going to live in the condo unit because we don't want to clean a big house. And so will make sense for us to live in a condo where everything is convenient, easy access. Our condo is near the hospital. At that age, that's perfect for us. But then the two houses that we've acquired also will become rental units. And so right now, those two units are going at a rental rate of about 20,000 a month for one house, which is the one on top, and then about 25,000 for the one at the bottom, the house with the evening shot. And mind you, the same way inflation will affect your expenses, it will also affect the income that you're earning from rental properties. And so rental yields have gone up. When we started renting this out, this was being rented out for 10,000 a month, and that was only 8 years ago. And so you get the point. It's going to go up with time. And so based on like a very conservative rental increase over the years, by the time that Cesar and I are 65 years old, the rentals will be 42,000 pesos a month and 53,000 pesos a month, roughly, approximately, which would add up to about 95,000 pesos a month. And so that's the income that we're going to earn passively from these properties. Sounds like a lot of money, but there's a problem. When you're renting out the house, there will be expenses. You're gonna have to fix the house. You're gonna have to pay for taxes. There will be months that you might not have a tenant and all of those things. So that income could very well fluctuate. And so what did we do? We diversified our income. One thing that we did is we put 1 million pesos into an index fund, which is really powerful, which is the S&P 500, the US stock exchange. And we invested that in a company, through a company in Singapore, a wealth manager in Singapore, and they're managing that for us. We don't have to do anything. We just have to, put the money in and then watch it grow. And so I can't get, I don't want to get into the details of like how we're going to make this grow essentially, but just so that you have an idea, upon like discussing with our wealth manager, we kind of like determined that conservatively this could grow to about 16 million pesos in 30 years because we put it in the Singaporean dollar, which is a currency that's also growing against the Philippine peso. I don't want to bore you with all the specifics anymore. But going back to the 4% withdrawal rule, if we withdraw 4% of that for every year, then we're going to get about 640,000 pesos per year by the time that we start getting dividends from this fund, which will be about 53,000 pesos per month. So all that together with some of the other diversified income streams that we built passive that will be passive for us, this is what our passive income will look like. Passive income only. So index funds about 53,000 pesos a month, rentals about 95,000 pesos a month, pension which we'll still get because SSS is still, SSS, right? Cash is still cash. And then we have other investments that we put in as well in the Philippines, stock market, index funds, some Atram. What else? We have some traditional life insurance with guaranteed payouts, which will come out to about 10,000 pesos per month. So that will put the total to about 186,000 pesos per month. So don't mind the miscalculation at top. My income did not drop from index funds, but it's 186,000 per month if you put all of those together. So that's just an example of the power of diversifying your income. So sometimes it could go up, sometimes it could go down. So if we're shooting for 120,000 pesos a month, which is the number that I shared earlier, and we're making this kind of money, that more than covers our expenses just from passive income alone. We also have a business that we run, which we hope to continue at a very limited capacity, even in this age. And we're also like banking and betting on other ventures as well that are active in nature. But that this is just to show you essentially how passive income could kind of like accumulate over time if you trust in compounding interest and if you diversify. So, in all essence, really, how do you make this work? Because time, once again, is your best friend. Then the key here is really early action. The earliest possible time for you to invest. If you're 35 years old now, you haven't started, then the best time to start investing was yesterday or today, whichever is more convenient for you. If you're 25, don't think that you're too young, because if you could start earlier, then you'll probably need less money to invest. Or if you keep on, building your investment portfolio as your income increases, then you could end up retiring with more income, which you can then later on pass down to your next generation, or you could use to give yourself a better quality of life even in your old age. But all of this essentially starts with early action. Sometimes we think about the future, and we think, okay, well, end of the day, that's so far away from now. Why should I even worry about that? YOLO, right? I mean, it's better to enjoy your money now. Well, that's true. I'm not saying that you don't enjoy your money now. That's why you only invest a portion of your income. I mean, we still enjoy our money now. We have funds for travel. We have funds for eating out and buying stuff. Whatever that is, we're not cutting out on those. But what we're doing essentially is we're dividing up whatever we can and then allocating some of the money for our future. Because what you're doing when you're investing is you're buying a piece of your future so that you can have financial peace. And with that financial peace, it can also have ripple effects into your well being even as early as today. So, all of this to say, this might sound very technical. You might not have all the answers. I might not have answered all your questions. In fact, some of you, maybe you might have more questions now before watching this video. The good news is you can just ask. I mean, reach out to me. I'll probably leave an email address in the description below. If you're a friend, a family member, and you watch this through my socials, then just send me a DM, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions as long as I can. Once again, I want to make this very clear. I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing to you what we've tried and what has worked for us and what has helped us go the right direction. And hopefully, that you can kind of like take some of the principles that I've taught here, and that you can apply it into your own personal setting as well. So with that, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one if there is a next one. Bye.